Okay, on to episode 4, and today we will be working on the African Crested Porcupine exhibit. I've decided that I'm going to pretty much work on my editing skills with this, so let me know how it goes. And I'm also going to make it a little bit more personable because I try to be more, professional, but that got boring really quick. So, let's move on. As you can see, I am getting the grassland and desert biome foliage and rocks together. However, it actually is known to live throughout a very wide range, more so than the game actually leads on, including some areas that are tropical, some that are a bit more dense in foliage, some that aren't, though they are most common in the more savanna-like locations. But they actually like to avoid places like the Sahara. They're not big desert animals, so we are going to stick with grassland for the most part. However, an arid grassland is pretty accurate. Now, what I'm doing right now is I am trying to make a burrow form. So I'm going to put this little center area, and I have a front end and a back end that you'd be able to take a good look at the animals with, and pretty much we are going to make a little overpass, similar to the Aardvark one, but it's going to have a little bit of a different feature, and we'll get to that in time. And here's just a little bit of facts that I can share with you. They are mostly nocturnal. It's kind of standard for a lot of African animals. It is far too hot midday, so they'll go out during the darker parts of the day, and obviously night, so that they can, survive. And that's also why I'm going to give them a nice big amount of cover here for their exhibit, because they are a burrowing animal. While they do usually have much thinner and smaller burrows, only really big enough for the porcupine itself to pretty much crawl in and out of, they will use larger burrows made by things like the aardvark, as I mentioned in that episode. But I figured this big one would be a nice place for them to rest and give them plenty of cover from the sun, the rain, and whatever else. Now, an interesting thing is when they decide to enter their burrows, they actually always enter them head first to force the only entrance to pretty much lead directly into their giant hind quills. Now, they actually have two types of quills. One is more reminiscent of the North American porcupine, and then the famous ones that are 2 feet in length, or at least can be 2 feet in length. And while they have 6,000 quills in total, those big ones are only about 500. So it's pretty much the way they burrow in is so that they can't get snuck up on when they're sleeping, because their predators would pretty much run face first into those massive spears. Now, unlike the North American porcupine, this is a predominantly land-dwelling creature. Now, of course, that doesn't mean the North American porcupine is some kind of aquatic or avian, but they are more arboreal, which means they live in trees and whatnot. The African Crested Porcupine really can't climb well. It can, however, swim fairly decent, especially for its body type. And as much as I would like to add some more water to as many exhibits as I can, we're going to keep this one arid, so we're not really going to have to worry about that. But it is an option when you're making your exhibit. Now, as you can see, I am starting to make that path, and you see it's going through some stone, but we'll deal with that in just a moment. So, one of the important things about the exhibit is I wanted to have more of a stable fence. I don't know why I decided to do this, but it just felt right. The whole thing isn't going to be stone like I did with the Aardvark exhibit, but we will have a decent amount here every once in a while. And obviously, the two different paths you could go, either along the side to get a better view of the animal, or up top for a better view of the exhibit in total. So I figured that would be a nice... It's always good to have options with as many exhibits as you can. And right here, what we're going to do is we're going to start adding some foliage, because I think I've got a decent amount of stone in. And I wanted it to have that, like I said, arid look, you know, not very waterful, but still having some life to it. So we're also going to add some brush, some basic foliage in and out of the area. Now, while I start to fill the exhibit with the brush and lower down trees, let's talk a little bit more about our animal in question. Now, its scientific name is the Hystrix crestata, which literally translates to crested porcupine, or rather, it's actually porcupine crest. They are a monogamous species, so a couple will stay together, both male and female, to help raise their pups, which they usually have about once a year. But interestingly, there's actually a lot of cultural significance when it comes to the African Crested Porcupine. Pretty much wherever they're found, the local peoples have some form of interesting lore about them. Some of which would be just the usefulness of the porcupine quills, and they're used for a lot of different things. For example, some tribes would actually use them as rattles, which the African Crested Porcupine does naturally. When it's intimidated, it can actually shake its quills so that they have that sort of rattle effect, just like a rattlesnake would. Now, not only are they good for being used as rattles, but they're also used as good luck charms, and in some instances, they're used as containers for gold dust, because those long 2-foot quills are actually hollow. So you can pretty much take them off, cut one end, and just use it as a container for something very valuable, yet of low abundance. So that's one interesting little tidbit about them. Now, if you see here, I'm adding a bunch of these dry-looking bushes, or I guess trees turned into bushes, and adding some trees up near the upper path, and that is just for the sole fact of it's out of the way of the animal, and still giving it a lot of space and a lot of interesting appearance. So, some other information about the African porcupine is that they have found that they, for some reason, and I'm sure it has something to do with different vitamins and minerals that they need, they have been known to collect bones. And not just animal bones, but they've even dug up graves in search of bones, and they'll bring them back to their burrows and collect them. Now, I couldn't find any information as to why they do this, but if I were to speculate, it probably has something to do with the calcium and other minerals within bones that are very useful. However, it's very interesting how much they go out of their way specifically to collect these bones. They don't just grab them when they find them. They don't just search for them and chew on them when they need it and come back. They bring them home. So if there's anything the average goth has in common with a porcupine, apparently it is bone collecting. Now, another informational bit to it is the sort of strange hairstyle they have, for a lack of a better term. That is completely unique to the African porcupine. Now, there's not too much of a reason for it, though one of the reasons that I have seen is to help with dust, similar to a mane on a horse. So, kind of help deal with bugs by shaking it, almost as a whip, or using it to get dust out of the eyes, which wouldn't be too much of an issue if it wasn't for the fact that they're very poor when it comes to eyesight. They're great at smell and all the other wonderful things most animals are, but again, as with many animals in Africa, it seems, not great eyesight. So, the last little bit of information that is of interest is one extra tidbit about their diversity in where they live. Obviously, it's an African crested porcupine. It's found all throughout Africa, and I did tell you a little bit about the biome, or, lack thereof, that this game shows. Another important fact is actually they are found in Italy as well. Now, that doesn't seem too strange, but when you think about it, there's no way they could have gotten there naturally. They're also found in Italy and Sicily. Now, a lot of people may wonder how they got there, and they wouldn't be found all throughout places like Greece, Turkey, etc. It's quite common of an idea that the Romans had actually brought them and introduced them into the Italian peninsula during their many, many adventures into what is now Tunisia, but is at the time known as Carthage, and of course, while exploring the Nile Delta. So, that's one of the ways that humanity affects the natural location of animals outside what many would expect. A lot of people think when it comes to humans affecting the location of wildlife, they only think about when we remove them, whether it be from overhunting, deforestation, but sometimes we accidentally bring them along. And while many times it is a bad idea and shouldn't be done because it causes horrible ecological damage to local fauna and flora, in this instance, it seems that they have just lived peacefully in Italy for quite some time. And as I finish up the little details on this exhibit, this is about the end of the information we have for today. I do want to add that it is very important to note that I will have all of the exhibits that I make as a prefab in the workshop as blueprints. However, and I do label them as such, of needing some form of terrain modification if that's needed, or if not. Now, if you are interested in more, please subscribe, like. I'm trying to make this more of a not professional and professional format, so if you find an interest in this, please, please, please take the time to give feedback and let me know what I can do better to make this either more entertaining, more informational, or if there's something else you would like me to add, whether it be either another insert when it comes to the animal, or if there's a little extra something you would like me to show made, or better examples that I could give when it comes to the topics at hand. Other than that, I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next episode. Remember, enjoy nature, get on out there, and enjoy all this world has to offer.